Hello, hello, and welcome to Audacity Presents. So glad that you have joined the podcast, or if you are watching the video on YouTube. Listen, I'm exhausted. For those of you watching the video on YouTube, I am exhausted. I had an opportunity to attend a women's conference in Sherman, Texas on Saturday, and on Sunday, I was the guest speaker. And I am recording the podcast and making this video Sunday evening, and I am exhausted. But what a time we had in Sherman, Texas. The women of the Greater New Hope Baptist Church put together an awesome women's conference on Saturday and on Sunday. Their theme was taken from Matthew chapter 5, verses 14 through 16, but verse 16 was their main theme. Their theme was shine and glorify. And I had an opportunity to share a word from the Lord on what it means to shine, to do good works, and to glorify God. I started off with asking the question, how did we get here? Because we can read something and, well, let me back up and say we can read a verse in Revelation and go all the way back to Genesis and figure out how we got to that scripture in Revelation. And so I wanted to show how we got to Matthew chapter 5, verse 16 by going back and looking at Matthew chapter 1. So if you did not get a chance to catch us live on Sunday for the message, I think it is still up on Facebook. We'll try to get it on YouTube, but I know that the full video of my message is on Facebook. So I do have something for my podcast people. The last couple of weeks, I have been talking about some well-known stories in the Bible and looking for some hidden gems that we may have overlooked because we're looking at the main purpose of the parable or the story that Christ told. So today I want to talk about the prodigal son. We have all heard this story of the prodigal son, how we had a man who had two sons. This is in Luke chapter 15, a man who had two sons, and the younger of them said to his father, "Father, give me the share of property that is coming to me." And it says, and he divided his property between them. Okay, can we stop right there? So the father divided his property between the two sons, but only one of them asked for his inheritance. Only one of them went out into the world, but the father divided his inheritance between the two of them. Y'all think about that for a minute. Only one of them wanted to leave home. But the father gave both of the sons their inheritance. One of them left, one of them stayed. Y'all think about this, where I'm going. Why didn't the other son leave? He had his inheritance. Why didn't he leave? Why did the father give the other son his inheritance? He didn't ask for it. I'm trying to figure that one out. He divided his property between the two of them, but only one left, one stayed at home. So I am on TikTok the other day, and I mentioned this in my message, that Christians on TikTok, we're on there doing research, right? So I'm on TikTok doing some research, and I ran across this video of this woman who talked about how there is always one child that stays at home, that takes care of, I love how she said it, that takes care of mom and them. When mom and them get up in age, there's always one child that stays home and takes care of mom and them, make sure they take their medicine, make sure they're going to the doctor, make sure everything is being done to take care of mom and them. Mama and daddy and them. That's what she kept saying. And then there's that child that goes off into the world, that's living the life, that wants people back home to know that they made it. And then when mom and them pass away, and I'm just quoting what this woman said on TikTok with my research, when mom and them pass away, then the child that left home, that went and made it out in the world comes home and tries to dictate how mom and them funeral needs to go. And there's never any acknowledgement of the child that stayed home that took care of mom and them. And I thought about that video as I was reading through the prodigal son's story. The father gave both of the sons their inheritance. One went away, one stayed at home. Nobody asked him to stay at home. I also think about in this story how you have a child that goes away, that goes out into the world. And sometimes, regardless of how bad it gets, that child does not want to return home because they are afraid of how the parent is going to look at them. They're afraid they're going to receive some, I told you so. I knew you wasn't going to make it out there. What happened out there? I knew you were going to have to come back home. Sometimes that's why kids don't want to go back home. Okay, I'm just saying. But in the story of the prodigal son, there were no questions asked when he returned home. A matter of fact, he's the one that said, let me go to back to my father's house and maybe I can be a servant. And the father said, this is my son who was dead that is now alive, and kill the fattest calf and bring a robe for him. The father celebrated the son coming back home. There were no questions asked. Wouldn't it be interesting, or wouldn't it be great? We let our children go off into the world. We have to allow them to fly. We have to allow them to leave the nest. But before they leave, if we could let them know, when it gets hard out there, you come on back home. No questions asked. I remember when I got married. I've been married twice, but my first marriage, I remember when I got married, and my grandfather told my then husband, now, if you get tired of him, send her on back home. And when he did get tired and I went back home, there were no questions asked. My grandfather's door was wide open for me to return home. So 2 things from the prodigal son. He gave the inheritance to both sons. One left, one stayed. And then when the prodigal son returned, there was a celebration, no questions asked. No, he didn't even say, what you do with all that money I gave you? There were no questions asked. It was a celebration. Now I know y'all want me to talk about the son that stayed, that got mad, but we all know that. We all know that the son that stayed got mad. But those 2 things about both of them getting the inheritance and the fact that there were no questions asked, that's an angle I had never thought about. The prodigal son returns. The prodigal son returns. No questions asked. Listen, y'all have a great week. I'm tired. I'm fixing to go back to sleep. You can take me a nap. But don't forget to go out and check out the Facebook video from the service at Greater New Hope Baptist Church. Had an awesome time with them. See y'all next week.